Good morning, backyard kids. We've had a great summer so far, learning all about exactly how God sees us. He loves us so much, and He has the perfect plan for our lives. He can use us to do big things and to make a difference in the world around us. And today, I've got another story for you all about confidence. Back in biblical times, Israel was ruled by several different kings who didn't always listen to God. And as bad as these guys were, King Ahab was the worst of them. In fact, he even built a temple for a false god named Baal. Because of this, God sent a prophet named Elijah to deliver a message to Ahab. Elijah told Ahab that he was a servant of the Lord and had been sent there by God, who was the one true God, to tell Ahab that because of his refusal to follow God, that there would be a drought in the land, no rain, not even any dew, for 3 whole years. Now, after Elijah had to deliver this news, which was admittedly very bad news, God told Elijah, "You need to get out of town." So he told him to go to the east of the Jordan River and to hide. So sure enough, for 3 whole years, it didn't rain in Israel. Crops died and rivers and streams dried up. So you can imagine that King Ahab got pretty desperate. It got so bad that his wife Jezebel hunted down most of the prophets of God and had them killed. But through all of this, God kept Elijah safe, He watched out for him, and He made sure that he had food to eat and water to drink. Then in the 3rd year of the drought, God told Elijah to go back and speak to Ahab again. And God promised Elijah that after he did this, that he would send rain to the land. So Elijah did what God told him to do, and he found Ahab in a road where they met. You can probably guess Ahab was not very happy to see Elijah, because after all, in his mind, Elijah was the reason that all this had happened. He was the troublemaker that had caused this drought. But Elijah reminded him that it was actually Ahab and the bad kings before him who had caused the trouble by worshiping false gods. But Elijah had a plan. He wanted to show Ahab and all of the people of Israel exactly who the one true God was. So he told Ahab to have people from all around to gather at Mount Carmel along with 450 prophets of Baal. Once Elijah had everyone there, he told them that they needed to make up their minds. Either they would worship the Lord, the one true God, or they would worship Baal. And so they needed to make a choice as to who they would worship. So first, Elijah reminded the people that he was the only prophet of God left, and that there were 450 prophets of Baal that were gathered there that day. So then he and the group of Baal's prophets each prepared a bull for sacrifice and laid it on their altars, and then came the twist. Neither would light their altar on fire. Instead, Elijah would pray to God, and the other prophets would pray to Baal to send down fire to light their altars. So all morning, the prophets danced around the altar, calling out to Baal to light their altar on fire. And while they did this, Elijah teased them, telling them to shout louder and to dance faster. And so they did all through the afternoon. But nothing happened. Finally, Elijah stood up, and he took 12 big rocks, one for each tribe of Israel, and he rebuilt an altar for the Lord. Then after he built that, he put the bull on top with sticks of wood, and he dug then a ditch around it. Then he had Israelites pour water all over everything, so much water that it was standing in the pit around the altar. So that's right, Elijah was about to ask God to set fire to a completely soaked altar. Then Elijah called out to God. He asked him to let the people know that he was the one true God of Israel and that Elijah was his servant, and to show them this by lighting this altar on fire. I can imagine all the Israelites holding their breath as they waited to see what was going to happen as Elijah finished crying out to the Lord. And then flames came down to the altar. They instantly burned up the wet wood and the sacrifice and even dried up the water in the ditch around the altar. The people around immediately fell on their faces, crying out to the Lord that He was the one true God. Now, next, the false prophets tried to escape. As you can imagine, they probably wanted to get away, but the Israelites captured them. And then Elijah turned to Ahab and told him to go, to eat and to drink, because he could hear the sounds of a heavy rain, which was weird because the skies were completely clear. Then out of nowhere, big drops of rain began to fall, the first drops of rain that anyone had seen in 3 years. And then, filled with God's strength and joy in seeing God do what he knew he could do, Elijah ran in front of all of King Ahab's chariots. He ran all the way back to the city. So guys, I want to remind you right now that the same God that Elijah trusted to call down fire is the same God that we worship today. God is in control of everything, even when we can't see it. So when things seem impossible, remember this. This is our bottom line for this week. God can do the impossible. We can have confidence when we remember this, and when we remember just how strong and powerful God is. So don't forget to take some time this week and to thank God for his strength.